Hey, welcome back. On the last episode, we talked about why generational wealth is important. On this episode, we're going to talk about how you can practically attain it. I don't know about you, but I was raised on the saying, money doesn't grow on trees. This summed up my working class upbringing and played a significant part in forming the limiting beliefs I would have around concerning money. Because think about it. How can me, Jordan, of all people, ever have endless flows of cash flowing into my pockets? How could I ever be so deserving when everything surrounding money was always linked back to not having any? Like when mum would say, "Don't ask me for anything when I go in the shop," or her favourite, "Why are the lights on? Does it look like I have shares in the electric company?" And all this formed the flower bed for my beliefs towards money and me not realistically ever being able to attain it. But mother was wrong, very wrong. And it took me over 20 years to realise that, because money does grow on trees. You just need to know where to get the seeds. My relationship money changed when Tim Campbell, the winner of The First Apprentice, took me and half a dozen other people out for lunch for our participation in a group project associated with a charity he was closely tied with. And on this particular occasion, he will say something I will never forget. Tim said, "I need to get money and I need lots of it. Not because I'm greedy or anything, but because it buys me time. It buys me time with my family, my children, and my friends. Because the more I have of money now, the less I have to work for it in the future." It was at this point I knew my relationship with money had to change and eradicate the notion that it was the root of all evil, and instead utilize it as a tool for me to really be the master of my destiny. And this started my quest towards not just knowing how wealth is made, but how I can make it for myself. And this is what this episode is centered around today, helping you build infrastructure around your finances so you have something of substance to pass down to your children and the generation that comes in after them. What I came to quickly understand was that virtually no one ever got wealthy from their job alone. Yes, they have used it as a launch pad to increase their wealth, but only when they use that money from their job to help them expand the avenues in which they can get further income, and not the type of income in which they need from a job either, but the type where you no longer have to trade your time for it. People who've accumulated wealth know this and practice this more than anyone. They know if they solely trade hours for money, then their net worth will be solely dependent on how many hours they work. And because there are so many hours in a day, then your money is limited by default, which is why they look for income opportunities, which gives them money irrespective of how many hours they have to work. And out of the 7 types of income you can develop and grow, 5 of them give you this option. So let's go through these 7 types now, starting with ones which requires your physical endeavor to ones which provide you income passively. If you're listening to this, the likelihood is that your main or only income source comes from your job, which under the 7 different types of income would fall under earned income. Even though we should all take pride in our work, earned income is the most inefficient form and proves problematic when it's your only source of income. This is true for 4 reasons. Firstly, because as already mentioned, trading your time for money handicaps your earning potential from the jump. This is because there's only a limited amount of time in the day, and as a result creates a glass ceiling for your income potential. Secondly, earned income is the most taxed income. The current rate for the average income is 20%, and this alone poses a big threat to you ever being able to generate wealth solely from this income source. The third reason is because salaries rarely keep up with inflation, which means that you wouldn't be able to buy all the products you could last year, this year, because the price of everything has increased whilst your salary has stayed the same, meaning year on year the value of your salary falls relative to the products you can buy from it. The last reason, and possibly the most important, is that you can lose your job at any moment. In the eyes of any corporation, you're first and foremost an economic commodity, and once your economic usefulness expires, so will your role. And if your bills, mortgage, and other expenses are tied to this one source of income, then you could be left in a dire position if it were to be pulled from under your feet. All these factors combined showcases why you need to vary your source of income, especially if your main or only source is from this type, simply because it gives you an assurance that you can still survive if anything surprising were to happen. And this brings us on to the second form of income, which is profit. This is the type of money that you earn for selling something for more than what it costs you to make. Similar to earned income, this form still requires us, in most cases, to trade time for money, but it's an upgrade because you dictate what it is you sell, how much you sell it for, and the profit you derive from it. Having exposure to this income type gives you a sense of ownership, because in this position, you typically be selling something from a business you own. As much esteem which comes from being in such a position provides, it does come with its risks. Most times, people are left oblivious to the effort required to start a business, the effort required to run a business, and the effort required to make it grow and be profitable. But nonetheless, it's worth it once it provides you with the financial freedom you've longed for. To break things down for you, there are only two types of ways you can make money. Having money come to you in the form of a service, and the second being having money come to you in the form of a royalty. The difference being that service requires you to always have to operate in the present to get paid, whereas a royalty allows people to get paid for what they've done in the past. People from our community typically land themselves to the service-based position, not because we're inept to do so, but mainly because we haven't been given the information to do otherwise. So to break the cycle of trading hours for money, we're going to delve into a third type of income, which is interest income. Chances are is that you already get this type of income, but the proceeds you get from it are so low that you don't even hold it as a factor. This applies to you if you have a bog standard bank account which pays the dismal 0.02% on your money. You get interest any time you lend someone money, and because banks use your money deposits to fund investment ventures and provide other people loans, any profit they make from that, they give you a tiny sliver of a crumb. This interest banks gives you doesn't even keep pace with inflation. So forget about this being a suitable income source, because having your money in one means you're losing money. Nonetheless, there are other forms of interest income which puts money in your pocket instead of taking it away. The first and most popular form are bonds. Bonds are instruments governments and corporations use to raise money in order to pay off debt, and those who buy these instruments are given assurances that they'll get their money plus interest once the bond matures. Relatively speaking, government bonds yield a smaller interest rate than corporate ones because there's less risk surrounding the asset, but nonetheless, it's a credible source if this type of income interests you. Another form of interest income which is quickly catching speed is something known as peer-to-peer lending. This is where you directly lend money to people who need it on interest. Similar to bonds, your rate of interest will be dependent on the risk of the person you are lending to. So if they have a low credit score, then you can command a high rate of interest. This form of income is passive, unlike the previous two mentioned. The remaining income types take this same trajectory, with some being more desirable than others. And this brings us on to the fourth type of income, which is dividend income. This form of passive income is an upgrade on interest income. Dividends is the income you get from owning stock in a company, and you get paid whenever a company you have stock in redistributes their profit to stakeholders in proportion to their stake in the company, which means the more stock you own, the more dividend income you'll be entitled to. The frequency of payments will be very much down to the company you have stock in, but it isn't untypical for payments to be paid out yearly, quarterly, and in some cases even monthly. It is important to slowly reshape the linear relationship you've had with money to date, in the sense of working at the start of the month and only getting paid at the end of it. Because once you begin to broaden the ways in which you receive income, you'll come to understand that they'll come to you at different paces, some quicker than others. Me explaining the ins and outs of dividends is beyond the scope of this podcast, but if you do want to learn more, then you can always go on YouTube, and there's a lot of free tutorials that you can find there. But this, however, brings us onto the fifth type of income, which is rental income. Depending on both if and when you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, could determine how you view property and its classification as an asset. This book transformed how I perceived an asset in itself, and made me realize that an asset which is most desirable is one which puts money in your pocket rather than one which takes it away, which is why I view property that you live in not being an asset until you sell it, whereas a property that is solely for rental is an asset outright because it has the potential to pay you immediately. Rental income doesn't have to typically come from just real estate, but can be applied to anything which you have that somebody else wants to borrow. People have found great success with renting things like RVs, boats, clothes, you name it, but nonetheless still provides you with an income stream which can supplement the one in which you receive from your job, which is why people have turned to Airbnb to monetize any spare capacity in which they have in their home and create a reliable income stream. Next form of income is capital gains. This comes from the increase in the value of the assets in which you own. Again, Here we can use property as an example, which in this case, if you bought a home which was worth £50,000 in the year 2000, and in 2019 that very same home is worth 110,000, we can say this property in particular had an increase of capital gains by £60,000. This income type doesn't require your physical endeavour, but does require for you to be astute in knowing what things you can buy now that will appreciate in value in the future. In addition to this is a type of income which can make millionaires of people in one fell swoop, because factors usually out of their control increases the value of their holdings exponentially. We see examples of this with land, art collections, homes, stocks, rare items, and a whole load of other stuff. But just know that people don't tend to secure these things because they look pretty, but because they know the value of the things tend to go up over time. The last type of income which rounds off the 7 types is royalty income, and this comes from your intellectual property. This relates to artists of every kind and those who own publishing. This type of income does require physical endeavour and time investment when you are creating your intellectual property in the beginning. But once this is finished, every time someone buys your work, whether it be music, books or software, you get a royalty payment as a result. The key here is to produce something of long-lasting value, which captures users' confidence and interest, and encourages them to buy it more or get others to do the same. When musicians' sales dwindle, or they are no longer at the top of the cycle of popularity, they rely heavily on their royalty checks to sustain their living throughout the course of their lives. However, just because you may not be an artist doesn't mean you can't benefit from royalty payments too. There is an active market where artists sells the rights to their royalties and for people to obtain the rights to them. So this is still something that you can invest in if you so happen want to receive income in this manner without being an artist yourself. Upon summary, we went through 7 income types. The first being earned income, the second being profit income, the third being interest income, the fourth being dividend income, the fifth being rental income, the sixth being capital gains income, and the seventh being royalty-based income. Please know that you don't need all 7 income types to grow wealth, but you will need a blend of them, which is why the average millionaire doesn't have several types of income, but he does have several streams of income. To achieve this is going to require you having to have a strong economic attack as well as a stronger defense, which means you're going to have to actively seek out these opportunities to expand your income, as well as being very mindful of how much you spend and when you spend. To get a start in increasing your streams of income passively, please find in the description a free ebook created by myself which shows you 40 plus ways in which you can start increasing your passive income from today. That rounds up this episode. I'd just like to thank you as always for tuning in from start to finish. I really do appreciate it. Please follow our Instagram page, which is bMoor.co, so bMoor.co, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Peace.